Hello. I have once again not made life easy on myself, and I am going into 10 days left in March with 5 books to read from my March TBR. So I'm half looking forward to it and half not looking forward to it going into this week, but I think it will be fine. I have 3 physical books and 2 Kindle books to read. I actually only have 1 Kindle book on my TBR that's a short story, so it's like less than 100 pages, I think. And I have to pick another one because I'd like to read 2 Kindle books every month, and I DNF'd one of the ones on my list. So I'm gonna pick another one. I have like a whole spreadsheet of the books that I have downloaded on there, and I have a few highlighted that I want to read early on. So I will probably pick the shortest ones of the ones that I'm interested in reading, but not yet. I also have a classic to read, but it's also quite short. It's like skinny. That one won't take too long. But we are going to start with my buddy read with my sister, just in case she wants to meet sooner than later. I got to pick this month, and I chose The Murder of Mr. Wickham by Claudia Gray, and I'm excited to read this. I love Pride and Prejudice. I also think the cover is really cool. I'm excited. It's like a little cozy mystery, I'm pretty sure, and obviously Mr. Wickham dies. I'm not sure who's all involved. I'm not sure if it's bringing characters back or if it's going to be new characters, but I hope it lives up to Jane Austen standards because, as you may know, last month my classic was a Jane Austen book, and now I only have 1 left on my list to read. So I love Jane Austen's books. Of all the classics I've ever read, they're always my favorite, and Pride and Prejudice specifically. Love Pride and Prejudice, hate Mr. Wickham, so let's get started. Wait, I literally just started reading The Murder of Mr. Wickham. I am on the 2nd page, okay? Just started. I assumed that because it was Mr. Wickham, it would just be Pride and Prejudice characters. It's all the characters from every Jane Austen book. So I read Northanger Abbey at the perfect time. I read it last month because they just mentioned Catherine, and this is supposed to be 20 years later, so it's actually her daughter that Emma knows. So the only book I haven't read is Mansfield Park, and now I'm thinking that might have been a mistake because there's going to be characters from that in here. Anyway, so like Mr. Darcy was just invited by Mr. Kingsley. Is that his name? Knightley, Mr. Knightley, and Emma. If you read this, you should read the author's note because they kind of explain this whole thing. Anyway, it looks like they're having a house party. I just read a couple more pages and I don't think I like Mr. Darcy. This version 20 years later, I thought that Elizabeth would have brought out the best in him, but he seems like maybe a difficult to please father, and I don't want to see him that way. I hope this doesn't change my opinion always, because like it's just someone else's writing about who they might imagine him to be 20 years after Pride and Prejudice, so I disagree with this vision. She made him so strict and severe, and I don't like it. I don't like it. I think he would be a good dad and that his sons would love him. So, if aloof, but like, not unliked. So I am about 70 pages in to The Murder of Mr. Wickham. I've read 3 chapters so far, and I honestly think that this book would be drastically improved if I had recently read all of Jane Austen's novels, because I find myself really connected to Juliet, which is supposed to be Catherine's daughter from Northanger Abbey, simply because I just read it, and obviously the Darcys, because I love the Darcys in Pride and Prejudice. I know the book in and out, I think, at this point. You know what, I shouldn't claim that because it's probably not true, but the other ones I'm not so versed in. So I was thinking about Persuasion, and I still don't actually know who the characters are from Persuasion. I haven't read it since 2nd year of university, so years ago now, and I don't remember any of it except for her going to the seaside to get better, and I think that's all I remember. I don't even remember which character it is from Persuasion. Should I check? And Emma I also know pretty well, and actually because I love Clueless, and every time I think of Emma, I think about Clueless being a wonderful representation of that story, so I always remember it. But Persuasion, Anne Elliot Wentworth. I also don't, oh, so many things are underlined because of school. It's also different when you're forced to read a book for your university class instead of wanting to read it. I should actually reread this. Wentworth did not desert her. So then 8 years later, she got together with him. Okay, so the Wentworths in this book, I think they're broke. I think Wickham bamboozled them and took their money, and that's their situation in this book. So everybody kind of has a connection to Wickham, and you don't actually know what they all are. So obviously we know the Darcys because of Pride and Prejudice, and it turns out that everyone else is kind of connected to him in some way as well, and we don't know it all yet. Especially Mr. Brandon, which it's so funny because I just keep picturing Snape because Alan Rickman played Mr. Brandon in Sense and Sensibility, right? I do remember that book quite well, actually. I think I read it like 3 years ago. So I don't know, it's funny what sticks with you and what doesn't. But this one I'm having the hardest time with, other than the characters from Mansfield Park. All of that aside, it is well written. It's written like it's from the time, so actually it does get a little bit of getting used to, but I kind of love that. And Wickham is a dipshit. He comes in, nobody likes him, and you kind of have all these people, when you're in their perspectives, saying in their own head, oh, I wish I could just push him off a balcony. Oh, I wish a piece of furniture would just fall on him. Oh, I wish he would just fall and crack his head open. So obviously we don't know who's going to actually murder him. Also, the Darcys, Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy in this, have a son who came with them. I think he's like 20 or something, they said. And there's a young 17, 18-year-old. Catherine's daughter, Juliet, is here. So I think there's going to be like a little bit of setting them up. Their son, his name is Jonathan Darcy, is like Mr. Darcy tenfold. Their son is definitely trying to make his way through this world of rules and regulations that he sticks to, and then is shown constantly that that's not actually the way that people always live their life. And he's like, I don't know how to act in this situation. So he's a very interesting character to read about. I'm enjoying it. I'm not loving it. I'm not immersed in the story, but it's still like kind of trying to introduce everybody's perspectives to Wickham, because obviously we don't know them, because really it's just Mr. and Mrs. Darcy who are supposed to be connected. So I'm going to keep reading this. I'm going to take a bath now. I have to read 5 books in 10 days, and we're on day 2 of that. So I'm going to read as much of this as I can tonight. It is 6 p.m. So I'll probably go to bed around 9. So I have like 3 hours of reading in me. We'll see. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I have not felt like filming. I'm on day 3 of my new job, and it's just taking so much brain power that like I don't want to put extra effort into anything outside of work right now. Not that it's difficult, it's just anytime you're learning new things and it's consistently throughout every day, it's like difficult to put time and effort into other things. I've still been reading. I started with 10 days to read 5 books, and now I have 5 days to read 4 books. So I read 1 book. So it took me a long time to read the first book, which is fine. I finished The Murder of Mr. Wickham, and it is March 26th, and I finished this yesterday. So I'm about to start a new book now on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Zach forgot that his insurance lapsed today, so we had to do that. He had to get his tires changed, like all of the stuff. So we've just kind of been in and out all afternoon. So now it's 7 p.m. and I'm going to start reading another book. But I did finish this yesterday. I should talk about this first. I ended up really enjoying this book. It was my buddy read with my sister for March, and it was my turn to choose the book, and I chose this one. And I kind of wanted to get us both out of our comfort zones. We were both just going to pick romance or general fiction for each other. I should get her to read a fantasy book one time, but I don't know that she's there yet. So I thought a cozy mystery is the way to go, especially with characters that we both know and love. I haven't read a lot of cozy mysteries. This is kind of, I think I started like last fall. I read my first couple. I did read a couple of Agatha Christie books last year as well and really enjoyed them. But this is my first like true, I feel like reading a cozy mystery, so I'm going to feeling. And I did really enjoy it. I did have to constantly remind myself that I was reading a current novel, because actually it seemed very classic-like throughout. The writing was so well done in that regard, and not like in a difficult to read way, but just like the way that they phrase their sentences and keeping the proper stick up, and it just stick, I meant like shtick. It didn't feel like it was making fun of that time, because sometimes it can kind of seem like a parody when people try to do that. Claudia, she did her research and it was really well done, and I really enjoyed that part of it. I also was like slightly surprised by the end, but I think when you are in like a closed house mystery, there's got to be like a name for what that is. But when you're in that environment, it is difficult to make it surprising, because throughout the whole book, you're getting to know the very small number of people that it could be. And in this book, every single person except 2 people had a motive. So that's 8 people with a motive to kill him, and all the motives were linked. Was a little bit less fun, the reveal, because it was not a surprise, but I don't think anybody would have been a surprise except for the 2 people it couldn't have been. It was just too long, I also feel like, so we really deep dived into everybody's possibilities. And another thing that actually really bothered me is that everybody's natural instinct was to lean towards anger. So she took all of these beloved characters, all of the men, and like 2 of the women, and made them just kind of angry. I think it's difficult sometimes to read about one quick to anger character, so for it to be constantly a bunch of people was actually kind of difficult to get through at times. I'm really glad that it switched from character POV pretty quickly. Like it was like rapid, like a couple of pages if that, on one person, and then it would switch to someone else in the same room. And it did that really well. So it kind of felt like reading a play where you're kind of seeing everything happen at the same time, and then it's putting a spotlight on the different people at different times. It was good. I'm glad I read it. I think I will continue the series because I am curious about what's going to happen next, because there was a little side plot that I wish went a little bit further than it did. In the end, I gave The Murder of Mr. Wickham 3.5 stars. And now I am going to start Hurt for Me by Heather Levy. I have a spreadsheet of all of the Kindle books that I currently have downloaded, and this is one of them, and I just had like 4 or 5 of them highlighted as wanting to read first when I get to choose. So I'm going with this one. I'm so sorry for my dog's breathing. It's just how he is. I think it's a dark romance. I have no idea what it's about. I think it's a woman taking power back for herself after something awful happening to her, but that's really all I know. I've never read a dark romance, so we'll see how this is. I don't have a wonderful track record with the books that come for free on Prime First Reads, and this is one of those, but I'm still hopeful. Good morning. It's the next day. I got about 16% of the way through Hurt for Me yesterday. I was gonna keep reading for like another hour and a half, and then Zach texted me at 8 o'clock because he realized that the last 2 episodes of Last One Laughing UK were posted. So I was like, oh, I'll be up in 5. So we watched that. Very funny if you haven't watched it. So I got about 16% of the way through, and for my first dark romance, I think this is a good choice because it's actually kind of close to a thriller. I don't actually see the romance yet. I do know where it's gonna come in, but it is kind of thrillery. We're following Ray/Echo. It is a past and present timeline, which if you've watched any of my videos, you know, not my favorite, but it is done very well in this book, and it kind of feels relevant to be that way. And it's every other chapter goes back and forth. One chapter in 2009, and then the next one, 2024, and she's the only character POV that we're reading from. So it's her in 2009, named Echo, and then she changes her name, and then you're following her in 2024. So it starts with her running away from an abusive relationship, pregnant. I'm not sure how old she is, because right now she's just saying, oh, I'm slightly older than this 33-year-old. So in the present 2024, she's probably like 35, I would guess. Anyway, she had an awful childhood into her young adulthood, and then ran away and kind of was taken in by a lovely lady who taught her how to be a dominatrix. So that's her job. And the thriller part comes in because one of her clients just went missing, and she, I guess, is one of the suspects, but I'm pretty sure the romance is going to come in with the detective. So I'm not that far yet, but he, I think, is less vanilla than she thinks he is, and a little bit more receptive to her job than she thinks he is. Speaking of detective, I feel like this lighting is giving interrogation. I promise it's 8:30 in the morning. I'm about to go to work. The writing is good. I'm not disliking the writing, which is good. So she has a daughter who doesn't know what she does for work because she's pregnant in 2009. So her daughter, I think she said is, 14 going on 31 is what she says about her. I think is going to figure out what her mom does and then probably not talk to her is my assumption. I'm guessing her past is going to come up. It kind of reminds me of Safe Haven. That movie is one of my comfort movies. I watch it all the time, and it reminds me of her running away and you thinking that she did this awful thing and then realizing she just had an abusive husband. I'm thinking that's the gist, but I'm not 100% sure. I know that she was treated like shit with her ex-boyfriend who got her pregnant, and he kind of acted as a pimp instead of a boyfriend, and she keeps calling him her ex, but I don't think that he thought that was their relationship. I'm not sure. I'm getting vibes that he's dead. I don't know. So that's where I am. I'm gonna keep reading for like 20 minutes now, and then I'll read more tonight as long as I can. I finished Hurt for Me this morning. It's already off my Kindle because I started my next book. I don't have too many thoughts. I definitely do now think upon finishing it that it is more of a thriller than a dark romance, so I wouldn't say I read a dark romance book. But it also didn't really feel like a thriller because it wasn't very thrilling. I didn't like or dislike it. I think I just felt indifferent towards the book. I am kind of surprised that I finished it. It did get to a little bit skimmy, but not enough that I wanted to not finish it. I don't know. I didn't skim anything. I just read really quickly and didn't think too deeply about what I was reading. And I think that's because it never really felt fleshed out plot-wise, character-wise. Really the only thing that you go in depth about is about the main character's job as a dominatrix. And even that was like a little bit boring because everything was above board, which is good. It just was a little bit boring, which I think was the purpose maybe, to like get rid of the stigma around this career. I liked our main character Dayton, the detective, but I kind of wish that it was dual POV and from his point of view, and we never really got his side of feelings, and he was not in it a ton, which is maybe why I don't feel like it was a romance, because he was barely in it. I don't know. I really appreciated the past timeline of 2009. It kind of felt like I was reading a memoir, which I enjoyed. In the end, I'm rating the book 2.5 stars, just an even right in the middle, because I felt so indifferent, but I never wanted to DNF it. I think that some books that I want to DNF but just get to the end are 2 stars. I definitely enjoyed the writing. I think I would read more from this author, but it just had a better plot. The plot was just a little bit lacking, and I don't think it needed to be as long as it was. Maybe it's because there were no side plots of any kind. Like, I kept thinking that her business partner Angel would have some kind of side plot, and it just like didn't go anywhere. I don't know, I feel like there was subtle foreshadowing that never happened, and the sex scenes were not really sex scenes. So that I did skip over because I was like, they really just talked about foreplay. I don't know. It was a little bit weird. This book kind of put me off in a weird way. I finished it this morning just so I could get started on my next book, honestly, not because I felt like I wanted to read it. So that's a little bit disappointing, but that's okay. So now I have left myself with 3 days to read 3 books, including today, which it's already 3 o'clock. And then Monday, today's Saturday, and then Monday is the 31st. So that's the last day I'd like to get finished my March TBR. And I work Monday, so I have a lot of reading to do for the rest of today and all of tomorrow. But I also have errands to do and like chores. So it's supposed to be really nice weather tomorrow, and we're picking up new patio furniture today. I think Zach's picking it up on his way home today. So I would love to pressure wash the deck and assemble some furniture. And I'm getting a new desk tomorrow for my office, so I'd like to set that up before I start work on Monday. So I tried to listen to one of my books as an audiobook just when I was walking Kelso. I think I have to read it to understand it. It's the classic, so I just don't prefer audiobooks. I really only lean towards them when I'm not enjoying my book but I want to finish it. So I only got halfway through the first chapter and then decided not to keep listening because I'd prefer to read it. But it is kind of short, so I think I can finish it. So that was The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. This is my classic for the month, and I would like to read it. It's very short, as you can tell. The writing is not that big, but it's less than 200 pages. I started on my Kindle. Man, I am jumping around. I started my Kindle The Fall Risk by Abby Jimenez. This is on my March TBR. I chose it as one of my Kindle books. It's like 80 pages, and I'm already a quarter of the way through. In this book, our main characters are, am I ready for naming their names? Seth is his name, and her name is, for some reason I want to say Charlotte, but I don't think that's right. Charlotte, I'm right. Okay. Our main characters are Seth and Charlotte. They are new neighbors. She just moved in across the hall from him, and I'm trying to imagine what this looks like, this California apartment, and I think it's like where the hallways are outside, and then you go up the stairs and there's just 2 apartments across from each other. Their stairs were taken down for construction, so they took down the wrong stairs. So they were still at home, and now he's like, I can get you a ladder to get you out, and they're like, well, let's just stay here. They're stuck in their apartments as new neighbors with no stairs. I actually love that that's kind of how it starts, because it feels like an episode of Friends or something, right? Where they're just locked in their apartment and they can't leave. She has a stalker. You learn right at the beginning of the book that she has a stalker who she is hiding from. So she's like, I will definitely just stay here. More than happy to. She works remotely now. She has some trauma, and he's trying to befriend her. She doesn't want him in her apartment, and she doesn't want to go into his apartment. So they're sitting in the hallway right now where I just left off, in between their apartments. I'm going to finish this, I think right now. It's going to take me probably less than an hour, 80 pages. Yeah, and I'm already a quarter of the way through. It'll be really fast. So I'm gonna finish this today, and then I'll probably keep reading this. I'll probably just start at the beginning because I don't really remember what I was listening to. I hope that I'll finish this today, 200 pages, but hard read, maybe like 3 hours of reading. So altogether, both of these with dinner in between, maybe 7 or 8 o'clock. And then the third book I have to finish for March is Red Rising, and I want this to be last because I'm trying to save the best for last. If you missed my March TBR jar video, I have read this. This is a reread for me, but I read it about a decade ago. Pretty quick after it came out, I read the first 2 books, and that's as far as I got. This came out in 2014. I read this about a decade ago. I remember I think I took it on vacation, and then I was like, oh, I'm just gonna put this series down until they're all done because I hate stopping in the middle of a series. I never went back to it. So I love the resurgence of it. I know I love this book. I don't remember much about it, but I remember loving it. That is going to be book number 3. I'm going to treat it like a brand new read because I honestly don't remember anything except for it kind of, I feel like there's an elevator really early on and it's kind of Hunger Games-y, and that's literally all I remember. I think it also reminded me of the city of Ember, and I don't remember why. Is that accurate, or am I just making that up because it's been 10 years since I've read it? Let's keep reading. I should read all day, seeing as tomorrow's the last day of the month, but I am going to take advantage of the nice weather and clean off our patio. And we're gonna sell the patio furniture we have, and we have new stuff sitting in boxes in the garage that I'm hopefully gonna build today. So I also have to clean all of this, get photos of it, pressure wash the deck, and build the new furniture. So I'm not sure how much reading I'm gonna get done today. It might be a time crunch tomorrow kind of thing, but it's only 10 a.m. and I'm gonna start now. So let me show you what I'm working with. It's the before. Done. It's Sunday evening-ish, and I am looking haggard AF. I apologize in advance. I have built the patio furniture, I've walked the dogs, I took a shower, and I put pajamas back on, and I've been sitting outside reading, and it's been so lovely. So I'm going to go back out there. Zach's gonna pick up sushi for dinner, I think, so that we don't have to cook anything. Yesterday I read The Fall Risk, and I read The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So I'll chat about both of these a second. The Fall Risk was beautiful. I absolutely loved it. I cannot believe that this is like a high stake book. I fell for our main characters and the whole side plot, and their friends had a little thing on the side, which was great. Everything, like, it's so high stakes and there's so much involved in just like 80 pages, which was amazing. So I rated this 4 stars. Can't say too much because it's a short story, so the whole thing is important. Just know that both of our main characters are wonderful. Dual POV for 80 pages, totally doable, and I absolutely loved it. So I read that. And then I started reading The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I read 20 pages, and then I actually went back to the audiobook because I found it just as difficult to follow along. So I thought I may as well like play Animal Crossing or do some chores around the house while I listen to this book, and it's only like a 2-hour audiobook. I like the physical copy because it has footnotes, which some of them are obvious and some are not. So it was actually kind of awesome. So I was under the impression that this book was following Jekyll/Hyde throughout his life to find out why he was the way he was. It's actually following his lawyer, Mr. Utterson, which is actually kind of interesting because he meets Hyde, the sub-character. If you don't know anything about Jekyll and Hyde, I don't know, I learned mostly about him, like the Hulk I think is based on him, but also A League of Extraordinary Gentlemen has their character in it. Anyway, so he met Hyde and he was like, knew that this man was in Dr. Jekyll, his friend's will. And he was like, why is this guy inheriting everything? He's an awful person. So he's going to his friend Dr. Jekyll and he's like, what is he holding over your head? So that's what the book is about. And then at the end you kind of do get some history, but this is not really my type of classic, I realized reading it, so I'm not gonna rate it because I feel like you can't rate something low just because you didn't really understand it or vibe with it when it's a classic. I don't know why I feel bad about that. This is not for me. That's okay. I'm glad I tried it. I maybe would have preferred it given a different time and not trying to read it in a crunch. I'm not sure. Maybe around Halloween. This is definitely more of a fall book. It has those gothic vibes. So it wasn't bad, but it just wasn't my cup of tea. And then this morning, I finally started Red Rising. So I am, I think, almost 70 pages through. Yeah, I'm just about to start chapter 9. I'm actually remembering a surprising amount because something very traumatic happens at the beginning. And as soon as I met a character, I remembered. And I was like, oh yes, I know what's gonna happen. And I just got to the elevator part. I think I said when I was going to read this that I remember something about an elevator, and I just got to that part. So now actually I don't remember anything. You are following Darrow. It might be Darrow, but I'm saying Darrow. You're following Darrow. That actually sounds better. You're following Darrow, and he is a miner in Mars, and his people are under the impression that they are preparing Mars for human inhabitants from Earth to come. And what they don't realize is that they're already there. And on the front it says Ender, Katniss, and now Darrow. And it is very Ender's Game, the beginning. That's the sci-fi level to me, which I loved those books. So I don't automatically love our main character, which I actually kind of appreciate. So maybe that's where the Katniss comes in, because she's not the greatest person, but neither is he. The rebels are trying to convince him to help them because they like who he is as a person. They think that he's smart. They think that he's different than all of these other slaves, which is what they are, which he never says, but that's what they are. They are trying to use him for their cause, which is where I'm at, is that they are trying to recruit him. That's the word I'm looking for. They're currently trying to recruit him. It's 5 p.m. I'm going to read this outside as long as I can, take advantage of this good weather. It was like 17 degrees on my walk. I wore a sweater and I shouldn't have, which is crazy. I think it's gonna rain the rest of the week, but that's okay. And then I will give you a recap tomorrow. Whatever I don't finish today, I know I'll just read after work tomorrow, which is totally fine. Okay, I am halfway through Red Rising and it is crunch time. It is March 31st at 6 p.m. and I have to read about 200 pages. I think I can do it. How long would that take me? Ooh, at least 3 hours. I'll be reading this till I fall asleep. That's a little bit unfortunate. That's okay. I finished my workday and then I meal prepped, which I should have done yesterday, but I didn't go grocery shopping till this morning. So now we read, and that's all we do. That's the only thing I'm allowed to do. Yeah, I'm halfway. Darrow has infiltrated the Goldens, as we call them, the highest up color in this world, and he's at their institute, which is their school for, I guess, training the next generation to be these political masters. It's not a democracy, okay? It is a fight to the death. Pretty much. They say it's not, but so this point that they're in, I think he's going to be in the institute for 10 months, it said, and he's probably 2 weeks in. This first week that he is doing is very much the capture the flag part of Divergent, but much higher stakes because it's the whole thing. Like, people are taking this as their life now. It's like Lord of the Flies. These groups of kids are splitting up and picking their tribes and survival of the fittest, but have a leader. That's what I'm reading right now. We are in the middle of, I think he said it's like day 6 or 7 of this capture the flag game, and he's just playing politics, trying to win because his goal obviously is to infiltrate as high up as he can so he can't lose or he won't get a good job and be able to do what he was sent there to do. His biggest alliance in this game is also someone that he actually doesn't trust himself. It's a little bit of a walking on eggshells and making the right decisions all the time around this guy. So crunch time starts now. Let's just get into it. Ooh, I'm also gonna need a snack soon for sure. A huge plot twist has just left me speechless. If you know chapter 28, if you know, you know. I didn't see it coming. Oh my gosh. That's all I have to say. Oh my god. In other news, it's taken me 50 minutes to read 60 pages, so I'm doing okay. It's not even 7 yet, and I have 140 pages left. I don't know if that's good or not. Look at this new location. I'm in Zach's office simply because I need to use his printer. I thought, why not just film this while I'm here? I finished Red Rising yesterday around 10 p.m. I finished it in bed. Let me just start by saying, not a book you want to read and finish right before you go to sleep. It took me like 40 minutes to fall asleep at least. I cried twice within the last little bit. The last 100 pages are insane. I absolutely loved this book. I'm giving it 5 stars, no notes. This is the first series starter where I have just wanted to move on to the next book right away in a very long time. That's how much I enjoyed it. I didn't remember any of it after my last update. Like, nothing rang a bell. I was like, why am I crying? I've already read this. Didn't remember a thing. So 10 years is a good amount of time to wait to do a reread. You know when a book just toes the line and doesn't go that extra mile to be what it's trying to be? I think this does it well. I don't know if that makes sense, but it doesn't skirt around problems or ignore things because it might not be the best thing to write about. It kind of approaches them. Obviously, this is like supposed to be a little bit of a parallel with the world, and I think it hits now harder more than it did at the time, I want to say. The politics in this say that democracy is bad. They're like, we have defeated democracy, which sounds awful. But then they also say, you think that the world 700 years ago for them, but now for us, had true democracy, but it didn't. Like, presidents were just kings in sheep's clothing, like wolves in sheep's clothing, and they were fake democracy. It kind of hit hard. But ignoring that part, the story itself was very good and it made me feel emotional, and I have said it before and I'll say it again, I love character development when it's done right, and Darrow's character development is done right because the way that he changes is believable and he still has the core of who he is and makes decisions based on that, and I think that that is a really, really wonderful way to write a book. I loved this book. It is a 5-star. I'm very happy about that. I am thrilled to keep reading this series, and I hope that I will read at least one book every month from now. I also, you know when you go to Goodreads after you think a book is 5 stars and you're like, let me just read the 1 stars just to see. And I didn't agree with any of them. So that is really good. None of them made me rethink my rating. That concludes my week of reading. 10 days, I guess. I finished all 5 books in 10 days, which feels great. I'm going to leave you there. Thank you so much for watching. Next week, I'm not sure what it will look like. I'm kind of have 3 things on the go right now, and I'm not sure which one I'm gonna post, but I hope you come back. I had a lot of fun this week. I'm so happy I found a 5-star read, and thanks for coming. Bye.